Have you ever noticed how unfinished tasks seem to clutter up our minds? When we finish a task, whether it's big or small, it leaves our thoughts. But when we leave something unfinished, like a phone call, laundry, dirty dishes, or even a puzzle on the kitchen table, it continues to occupy space in our minds, even as we move on to other things. Did you know there's actually a name for this phenomenon? It's called the Zeigarnik Effect. The Zeigarnik Effect, named after the Russian psychologist who first noticed it, explains that the human brain tends to remember unfinished or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. Zeigarnik discovered this phenomenon while observing waiters in a busy restaurant. She noticed that they had a remarkable ability to remember unpaid orders, but once the orders were paid, the details quickly faded from their memory. It's similar to when you were a student in school and could remember names and dates and facts in preparation for a test, but as soon as the test was over, you'd immediately forget all the information. That's the phenomenon. Our brains are wired to remember unfinished or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. Why am I telling you this? Because once we understand what is happening, we discover a really helpful tip to declutter our minds so we can focus more of ourselves on things that matter. In the doctor's research, participants were asked to complete simple tasks like solving puzzles or performing routine activities. Some participants then were interrupted midway while others were allowed to complete their tasks. When asked later to recall what they had been doing, those who were interrupted were twice as likely to remember the details compared to those who had finished the work. Unfinished tasks take up more space in our brains than completed ones. This is something that many of us experience every day, and now you have a name for it. And now that we can recognize the phenomena and call it what it is, we open up the opportunity to live with a less cluttered mind. Many of us carry the mental burden of unfinished tasks, and rarely do we need to look any further than our own home. Whether it's the cluttered garage, the half-painted room, the pantry that needs to be sorted, the shelf that needs to be dusted, the small repair project that isn't finished, or the stack of papers on our desk that needs to be filed. These unfinished projects occupy space in our mind. They don't weigh on our minds because they're more important than other things. Our minds give them extra attention simply because they are undone and feel urgent. And this is so important to understand. The urgent ends up drawing attention away from the important. Our biggest goals, the most important ones, those that result in actual fulfillment, meaning, and significance, receive less of our attention because the undone, unfinished projects clutter our mind. Again, we can use this for good. By completing projects, we free up space that leads not just to less stress, but a better ability to focus on what's truly important. So here are some ways that we can accomplish this. Number one, own less stuff. The Zeigarnik Effect applies to projects and principles far bigger than the projects around our homes. But I fear as our homes have increased in size and the number of possessions we keep inside them grows, more and more of our mental energy is being directed toward the items that we own. The more we own, the more energy and attention our things require. By simply owning less stuff, we naturally reduce the number of unfinished projects at home. Number two, apply the 1-minute rule. Gretchen Rubin is the person who first introduced me to the 1-minute rule, and long before I ever heard about the Zeigarnik Effect. The 1-minute rule is simply this: if something takes less than a minute to complete, do it immediately. This effect explains why this idea is so important and life-changing. It closes the mental loop on unfinished projects. Number three, create routines in your day. Incorporate project completion into your daily or even weekly routine. Set aside specific times for tackling unfinished tasks and schedule enough time to fully complete them. For example, I schedule all of my social media posts for the week on Mondays so that I don't need to think about it after that day. Here's another example of a routine that we incorporate in our home. Whenever we eat dinner, we consider preparing the meal, eating the meal, and cleaning up afterwards, all parts of the dinner process. Rarely do we move on to a different activity without cleaning the kitchen first. So whenever you create a daily routine, schedule enough time to complete it entirely. Number 4, break your larger jobs into smaller tasks. One of the principles that I teach in the Uncluttered course is the importance of breaking larger jobs into smaller tasks. Decluttering an entire home is an overwhelming thought for everyone. Even decluttering one room of a home can be a time-consuming task for somebody. But that room, any room, can be broken into smaller, manageable tasks. One shelf, one drawer, one corner. There are many projects and dreams in life that take considerable time to complete. But when you break that larger goal into smaller, more manageable tasks, you can complete one step at a time before moving to the next. Our lives are filled with beautiful and important dreams, goals that will bring us real, lasting joy. By finishing smaller projects, especially those pertaining to household chores and tasks, we can literally declutter our mind and open up the possibility to focus on larger, more meaningful pursuits. Owning less and living a minimalist lifestyle can make this process even easier. With fewer possessions, there are fewer things to manage and fewer tasks to complete. This leads to a simpler, more intentional life where our time and energy can be directed toward what truly matters.